Who can you really trust in this election? Welcome to the Biblically Correct Podcast. Shalom, y'all. This is the Biblically Correct Podcast, teaching biblical correctness in a biblically incorrect world. My name is Geoffrey. I am a Jewish follower of the Messiah Yeshua, Jesus, and I love teaching the Scriptures. There's a lot at stake in this year's presidential and down-ballot elections. And no matter how things might look right now in the polls, or even how the election itself turns out, there'll still be reason for grave concern about the future of our country. So today I want to remind you of what you already know and encourage you with a message of hope about the results of this election, although perhaps not quite in the way you might expect. Let me start off by giving you an idea of where my head is at in all this. If I were speaking to you just 4 years ago in 2020, I'd be encouraging you to pray and think seriously about who you'd be casting your vote for. I'd be encouraging you to get out and vote on Election Day, to vote for the candidates that most closely align with your biblically informed principles and convictions, regardless of how far away from those principles they actually are, as long as they're closer than the other candidate. And I'd encourage you to make your voice heard, to do your civic duty. But this year, while I will personally still be voting on Election Day, pulling the lever for whoever that my conscience will permit me to support, as much as I hate to admit it, it's now painfully obvious that the old thinking about voting in America just no longer applies. For one thing, Election Day is a joke. The die is already long cast with what is now widespread early voting, voting by mail, and ballot harvesting from uninformed, easily manipulated voters. We also don't care enough to show up to vote in the primaries, so that our choices in the general have been made for us, either through the power of incumbency or by the efforts of the extreme activist wing of the party. But until those of us who still claim Yeshua as Messiah catch up to the reality of politics and governance in 21st century America, many of us just can't seem to help ourselves but to look to presidential elections to save our country, to save us, and to set things right. And based on the last 4 years, that old quaint perspective is understandable. Can you even imagine what the next 4, much less the next 40 years will look like? Not only are illegal immigration, government spending, and national debt totally out of control, unsustainable, and insurmountable, but our elected leaders don't even seem to care and keep voting for and allowing more. Our justice system is completely broken in many areas of the country now, where the law is unevenly applied and twisted, being either weaponized or completely disregarded based on political or intersectional persuasion. And we have no unbiased press to keep the people informed and our leaders honest, but instead a media that is committed to spreading messages that challenge and eat away at our biblically based values and ideals of God, family, culture, identity, and objective truth. The future of free speech and our ability to share the good news without restriction hangs in the balance. So to anyone who's paying attention or has an opinion about what's going on in the world, we all agree on one thing. We need saving. We want this stuff to get fixed so that we and future generations can be safe and free. But for however long voting in elections still carries any amount of weight or importance, I'm done imagining that whoever we try to put in office can stop or even slow what's happening. In fact, even when times were good, never should we have looked to or relied upon any person to save us. As believers, we should have not only known this, but believed it and acted like we believed it, especially those with no daylight whatsoever between their faith and their politics. We should have known that even while we participate in the electoral process, such as it is, to not look for salvation from any human being. Because the Scriptures teach us that it is false to hold out such a hope. In Psalm 108, for example, David cries out to God in verse 12. Give to us help from adversity, for empty is the deliverance of man. The kind of help from adversity that comes from a man can be real and tangible. A president can lead a country, influence policymakers, and enact an agenda for the benefit and relief of the people. Yet the scriptures say that even that kind of deliverance is ultimately empty. Human beings will fail us. They can be corrupted. They will fall short. They will make promises they can't or don't intend to keep. They will make decisions now that will have catastrophic results in the future. And the adversity of today will either remain or eventually return and get worse. There's no substance to the deliverance of man. It is empty and cannot save. Look also at what it says in Isaiah 31. The prophet warns Israel about seeking an alliance with Egypt against Assyria. And he says to them in verses 1 and 3, Woe to those going down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, for help, and who rely on horses, and trust in chariots, because they are many, and on horsemen, because they are exceedingly strong, but have not looked to the Holy One of Israel, and have not sought Adonai. For the Mitzrayim are men and not God. Who doesn't want a country with a strong military and a leader with the will to command it? But the scriptures say that a people who rely on weapons and military assets and trust in the strength and numbers of their troops are headed for calamity. Such a military is ultimately doomed to fail because it is led and deployed by people and not God. A commander-in-chief can make miscalculations. Generals can underestimate their enemies. Strategies can fail. Soldiers can lose their nerve. When we rely on and trust in the strength of men, we do so at our own peril. And in Jeremiah 17, the prophet speaks likewise of the kingdom of Judah, in which the people had been steeped in sin and were walking away from God. Beginning in verse 5, he says, This is what Adonai says, Cursed is the man who trusts in man, and has made flesh his arm of strength, and whose heart turns from Adonai. And he will have been as a naked thing in the wilderness, and will not see when good comes, and will have inhabited parched places in the desert, a barren and uninhabited land. We humans are very capable beings. We're able to care and fend for ourselves. By our own will and resolve, we can accomplish great things and propel ourselves toward whatever we set our mind to. But the scriptures say that one way or another, trusting in mankind, especially in ourselves and in our own strength, will eventually leave us naked in the wilderness. We will be surrounded by barrenness, all our resources exhausted, exposed and vulnerable to the harsh realities and dangers of life. The man who trusts in man is cursed by the strength of his own might. This is the hope we have when we look to the presidency or Congress or the Supreme Court or even the Constitution to save and deliver us from adversity. It is an empty hope, a false hope, a cursed hope. Man cannot save and make us safe and free from the destruction and depravity of man. Yes, through sheer will, we can work and plan and resist and fight. We can campaign and donate and attend rallies and vote. But that person you're trying to put into office can ultimately do nothing for you. They may be made the arm of your strength, but will never be your savior. Because while it is a curse to trust in the empty deliverance of man, there is one in whom we can confidently trust, in whom we can place all our faith, hope, and expectations. In verses 7 and 8, Jeremiah goes on to tell us of the abundant blessing we can have when we instead trust fully in God. Blessed is the man who trusts in Adonai, and whose confidence has been Adonai, and he will have been as a tree planted by waters, and by a stream he sends forth his roots, and he does not fear when heat comes, and his leaf will have been remaining green, and in a year of drought he is not anxious, nor does he cease from bearing fruit. To trust in man is to leave us parched and vulnerable in a harsh, deserted wilderness. But to trust in Adonai is to be planted by streams of water, to abound in fruitfulness, and to have complete confidence in whatever outcome, especially in the face of a crumbling country. The blessing of trusting in God and not man is that when we are met with the heat of those wishing to undermine and destroy us, our nation, and our way of life, we don't have to fear. When there's a drought of people willing to stand up for God, for the truth, and against political, societal, and moral corruption, we don't have to be anxious. When we trust in God and not man, we can endure the heat and drought of terrible times, no matter how long they last. We can persevere through hardship and suffering and still continue to bear good fruit. When we trust in man, there is no certainty. But when we trust in God, there is no fear. Psalm 118, verse 5 through 9 says, "From the dire straits I had called on Yah. Yah has answered me and set me free in a broad place. Adonai is for me. I do not fear. What can man do to me? Adonai is for me among those helping me, and I certainly will look securely on those hating me. Better to take refuge in Adonai than to trust in a man. Better to take refuge in Adonai than to trust in princes." There's nothing to fear from those who hate you or wish you harm, or from those who lobby, legislate, and litigate against your beliefs, your rights, and your future. There's nothing to fear, not because you elect the right person to office, and not because you can't be hurt, but because Adonai will answer your cries and set you free. Trusting in man and princes and elected leaders is a fallible refuge. It is a false footing that can shift out from under you without a moment's warning. But when you trust in God, you have a secure sanctuary. No matter what destruction our adversaries may succeed in raining down upon you, only God's deliverance can bring you the help and hope that you need, that is true, that is forever, and is worthy of praise. Psalm 146 begins, "Hallelujah! Praise Adonai, O my soul. I will praise Adonai for all my life. I will make music in praise to my God as long as I exist. Trust not in princes, in a son of man, for he brings no deliverance. His spirit goes out of him. He returns to his ground. In that day, his thoughts will have been destroyed. But oh, the happiness of him who has the God of Jacob for his help. His hope is on Adonai, his God." There is reason to have hope about the results of the upcoming election, but not because we might elect a person who can save our country. Regardless of who becomes our next president, the reality is nothing is going to change, except maybe the speed at which we hurtle ourselves toward the precipice. That's where we're at. There's no going back to simpler or saner days. We have to face what's coming sooner or later. Instead, the hope we should have for this election is that its results will further polarize us. And by that I mean that it will wake up the sleeping believers to the reality that our country is irrevocably divided, and that there can be no living in peace with evil, no compromising with wickedness, no more ground ceded to self-destruction, and no overcoming it with politics. As American founding father John Adams wrote in 1798, "We have no government armed with power, capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Our country's systemic problem of decadence and depravity doesn't stem from the inability to find biblically moral people of character to lead us. Our problem is that the electorate of America doesn't consist of biblically moral people of character. We elect immoral leaders who enact immoral policies because we are an immoral people. Our hope for becoming a people of true biblical faith, then, lies not in the promise of any government or human being. Our only hope has always been, and always will be, the transformation of people's hearts and minds through the salvation of the good news of the Messiah, Yeshua. The values and direction of this country can change only when the values and direction of the people have changed. If we want our country's culture to be compatible with our beliefs, to glorify the God of Israel, it cannot be done through fruitless dialogue, tolerance, or reasoning. We need to fight not for our policies and politicians, but for the complete deliverance of people's souls. As followers of Messiah, we need to think and behave according to the fact that politics should only ever be downstream from our faith. It is not interchangeable with our faith. It is not inseparable from it. It is not our solemn religious duty to be political, and certainly nothing to be religiously fanatical about. Whatever passion and zeal you have for a politician or for politics or activism instead deserves to be channeled elsewhere into something far more critical and crucial to our survival. My encouragement to you then is to already be looking past this election. If your candidates don't win, if you even have any, don't lose any sleep over it. And if they do win, don't breathe a sigh of relief and get comfortable or content or complacent. However important or irrelevant your vote may still be, or however significant or immaterial our leaders are, your main focus and energy should be on only one thing: doing the work of being and making biblical disciples of Messiah. We as believers in Yeshua are completely surrounded on all sides by zealots who are far more committed to their causes than we are. Whether it's political leftist progressives, weak-kneed pseudo-conservatives, racial or sexually deviant social activists, or ethnic cleansing religious radicals, these people are willing to lie, cheat, steal, and kill for what they believe in. As disciples of Messiah, we also need to be, not in our actions, but in our intensity, just as radically, fanatically, and single-mindedly committed to our cause of spreading the good news and making disciples, and to be willing to face whatever punishment, persecution, and adversity that comes with it. Any hope we have for the future of our nation is in turning the American constituency into a people whose real country is in heaven, who understand that the default position of humanity is sinful and evil, and that only belief in Yeshua can deliver us from it. Our only hope is in God, not men. Only as lights in the world can we make the darkness of it recede. Paul exhorts us in Romans 13, verse 11, "And consider this, knowing the time, that the hour is already come for you to be aroused out of sleep. For nearer is our salvation now than when we first believed. The night has advanced, and the day comes near. Let us lay aside, therefore, the actions of the darkness, and let us put on the armor of the light. And in Philippians 2:14, he says, "Do all things without murmurings and reasonings, so that you may become blameless and innocent children of God, unblemished in the middle of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you are shown to be as lights in the world, holding out the word of life." No person, no president, and no election can save our country. But the God of Israel, through the Master Yeshua, can save our souls. The darker the days become, the brighter our light can shine, when we trust not in man for our deliverance, but place all our hope in God alone. Thanks for joining me for the Biblically Correct podcast. If you like this episode, please support us by making a donation. And don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications of new episodes. Until next time, remember that every scripture is God-breathed. Shalom.